And tonight we're doing session 4 of the beginner fly tying class. And the fly tonight is the gold-ribbed hare's ear. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everybody know that's on here that next week we'll be doing Troutsman hex fly. If you've ever been up north and seen the great big huge mayflies, that's what those represent. And so Bill is going to be probably seeing some of those when he goes up to Michigan. So I figured I'd do that next week. The week after that, I believe, is 2 wet flies. And then the 11th of April, this is what I really wanted to get out there, is we have a guest tyer named Tim Jacobs. And not really sure of the topic, but he does some amazing deer hair bass bugs. I met him at the Denver Fly Show, and so he's going to do a presentation for us. And then, of course, on the 18th of April is our next fly tying class, and that'll be the Zug bug. So tonight, the feature fly is the gold-ribbed hare's ear. And can you see that?
Yeah, you want to spotlight yourself, Mike?
Yeah.
Right. Time I do those lists. I did a list.
There it is. And the origin of this pattern isn't really known, but it's thought to have originated in England in the mid 1800s. It was basically derived. There was a wet fly named the hare's ear, or the hare's ear, and there was actually a dry fly as well. But in about the mid 1800s, the gold-ribbed hare's ear was first put in books, I believe. But it's, even to this day, it's probably one of the top producing nymph patterns of all time. I'm going to go in, I'm going to share a screen here and go into basically, to start with, there we go. This is being tied on a nymph hook. And to just kind of give you a comparison, a dry fly hook has light wire, where a nymph hook is about the same proportions, but it has a heavy wire. And again, a nymph is below the surface. So you want that heavy wire hook to be able to sink the fly. Also, the materials that are put on them are normally water absorbent and allow that fly to sink. Then this fly is actually a nymph. So there are dry flies that are intended to float, of course. Wet flies, if you look at the second picture here, there are some species of insects that actually dive below the water, some caddis flies, some other insects land on the water, on the surface of the water, but then they're swept under. So wet flies are intended to either represent flies that dive or flies that are accidentally swept under. But what we're focusing on here is the nymph stage, which is immature mayfly and other species as well. The attributes that are used to actually tie the flies. For dry flies, of course, everything is light and stiff and sparse and water resistant to make sure that that can float on the surface of the water. Where wet flies, heavy wire, soft webby materials are used. You can use heavier thread. A lot of the materials, like the tail, instead of being stiff and sparse, they're thick and soft, like what we'll see tonight. The body material is soft and buggy, absorbent of water. And if it has wings, which a nymph does not, they would be swept back. So just to kind of give you a idea of what we're representing here, the nymph stage again is what we're representing with this fly. And this is actually a pheasant tail, which we did last week or last month, I mean. But it's a nymph and it's the same basic body parts and the same basic proportion as what that nymph is. But since the gold-ribbed hare's ear is more of a buggy and it's kind of fatter, a lot of times it can represent some of these like a caddis pupa or even a larval stage, depending on how deep the fly gets down to. And then I want to share basically the recipe here. Again, we're using a nymph hook. Normally they're 2x long, and the reason for that is the abdomen. If you used a standard hook, which is a little bit shorter, the abdomen wouldn't be able to be as long as it is for the natural insect. By the time you put the wing case and the thorax in there, it would just be too short and stubby of a fly, and you want to be able to represent those nymphs the way they look in nature. Actually, the gold-ribbed hare's ear, depending on what you really want to represent, it could be a stonefly down to a small mayfly, depending on the size you tie it in. So it can be from an 8 to a 22. The thread can be black or brown. The tail is actually from their guard hairs from the fur of a hare's mask. And the rib is a gold fine tinsel, or you can use wire. You can use flat or braided tinsel. There's a lot of different options for that. And the abdomen itself is dubbing, which I'll get into here in a second. And what we use that, again, the name of the fly is the gold-ribbed hare's ear. You can use a hare's mask and a turkey tail, and you've got all the materials you need. And you can substitute some of the materials if you need to. So I will stop sharing. Before I get into the materials, and I want to kind of do a little demonstration of what dubbing is. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. This is a beginning fly tying class, but dubbing is basically it's a material, whether it's fur or synthetic. You can kind of think of like carpet fibers are made of antron. There's a lot of different things that could be made up into dubbing, but I'm just going to start a little bit of thread on the hook just to do a quick demonstration on what dubbing is. For a lot of our flies, again, last week we did the pheasant tail nymph, and you can see that the abdomen of this fly has little hairs sticking out. That's actually from the feather barb that was wrapped around the hook. In the case of the gold-ribbed hare's ear, the fuzzy part of the abdomen there is actually just fur, under fur, that's spun around the thread and then wrapped onto the hook. So I'm going to take some, I think this will probably show up the best. I'm just going to take some brown dubbing. And if you'll notice, I have this, I'm going to zoom out some, since I'm not focused on the fly anymore. I just have this little wisp of dubbing. And where I got it was, this is super fine dry fly dubbing. So this is intended to float. It doesn't easily absorb water. And it can be twisted on really tight. And so it's used for dry flies. But I just wanted to use it for an example. These are really long fibers, if you look at this, as I stretch it out. So what you can do, if you twist it in one direction, is basically twist it onto the thread. And then when you wrap it on the hook, now instead of a black thread, I have a brown body material there. Now again, for a dry fly, I'm using, it's sparse. You can see by that, it's very sparse. What we're going to be doing tonight is using hair from a hare's mask, basically a rabbit face. And so if anybody's has a rabbit for a pet, they may not want to watch. But basically we use that material to twist onto the thread. Now, the opposite extreme of this reel, it's called superfine again. It's very, very fine, very long fibers. There's a pretty popular dubbing now, if I zoom out again here. This is called ice dub, and it's synthetic. It's like a plastic material, very shiny, as you can see, very glistening. It glistens, but it's very coarse. And so if I just try to spin it on the thread like I did before, a lot of times it's pretty difficult. The key to dubbing is always to use a very small amount. If you need to add to it, you can always add, but use a very, very small amount. So I was able to actually dub this pretty tight with that real shiny dubbing. And then when I wrap it on, excuse the camera there, then when I wrap it on the hook, it's, you can see it's maybe a little bit, it's more of a coarse material. So you can see it's kind of sticks out of there a little bit, but it's very shiny. So next I'll just go to the materials. And so can you see that clearly? I think you can. All right. So this fly again is made up of course, we have a hook. I'll move that over to the vise. The tail is part of this hare's mask. And the abdomen is from all over this hare's mask. The wing case, which I'll show you, is just from, this is a little stub of a turkey tail feather that I have. It's good because this this side over here anyway is modeled really, really nicely. Has nice little markings in it. That'll make a good wing case. And then the thorax is also the same type of dubbing. So the first thing we need to do, and I'll go step by step on the fly itself. Go ahead and put that hook in the vise. Now, I'm putting the hook in the vise with the very tip of the jaws grabbing the bottom of that bend. And the reason for that, if I grabbed it closer here to a lot of people like to bury the barb of the hook so they can kind of save their fingers, but there's not very much of that, of the actual metal of the hook that's grabbing onto because of the taper of that point of the hook. So the strongest point, you don't have to worry about bending the hook or breaking it, is to grab it just by that bottom corner right there of the bend. So now you can put pretty good pressure on it. You can actually bend it and break it, and that's not going to come out of the jaws, but also that's the strongest point, so you don't have to worry about bending it. I'm going to move my light a little bit here because I'm going to end up bumping into it very often the way I had it set up. There we go. All right. So I'm going to put the thread on my hook. I'm going to leave an eye's length back from the eye of the hook. So I have about maybe 2 or 3 inches here in my left hand. And then I lay it across the hook and wrap it around with an eye's length of bare hook at the front. And the reason I did that is when I tie everything down at the end, I'll still have room for a head. Now, as I wrap backwards, I'm holding the thread at a little bit of a tension and almost a 90-degree angle. So when I wrap against that thread, it makes touching wraps all the way back. It's not highly critical, but it's just a good practice to get into to give you a good thread base. Now, the first thing I need to put in there is the tail. So I'm going to try to use this camera, zoom back out again. And on a hare's mask, there's all different lengths of hair. On the ears, it's real short with really nice markings. It's like real light on the tips, and then darker down below. It just makes it a really nice look. As you can see right here on this longer stuff, you have dark tips, a light bar, and then darker. So it's really nice markings. And what you want for the tail is this stuff, if you look at this mask, in between the eyes, it's a little bit longer. Right at the base of the wings is a little bit longer. So if you just come in here and try to grab some even, get the tips fairly even in your fingers. And then I'm going to take this off camera here and just clip it right at the skin. So what I've got here is way too much for the tail, but I'll save some of that. So I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself. We need to make sure that the class is at the same point that I am. So now that I covered the tail, is there, do you guys have your thread started? Have you started at all?
No, we were just kind of watching, Mike, so give us a
Okay.
minute to get the face down.
All right. So let's get to the point where where your thread is started on the hook. And if you need me to go through that again, I can.
Okay. Well, we got Eric here, he's teaching, and Bill is teaching on our 2 students, so
Excellent.
we have 3 instructors and 2 students tonight.
Okay. Sorry for that, but the way we did this before was I would go through all the instruction first, and then we would tie the fly step by step. And we decided to do it a little bit different because usually you guys ended up tying along with me on the first time when I was just instructing, and then it got a little bit of awkward because we tied it twice and,
Yeah.
so
I'm
again, to
sorry.
start, if you want to watch me start the hook, start the thread, I'll do that again.
And I'm
Um,
sorry, Mike, I got 4 hours of sleep today, so.
No problem. So by the link, the eye of the hook, what I'm talking about is this space here from where the hook eye is to the back of it. I want to make sure I have at least that much back from the eye when I start the thread. So I lay the thread against there, again, holding about 2 or 3 inches in my hand, lay the thread against there. And then as I wrap it around, then I start going back across it, and that holds it down underneath. Try to keep your thread tension about the same and just keep wrapping backwards against that thread, and it makes a nice thread base like that. And then I'll just clip the excess. Let me know when you're at the point that I am.
Okay.
No.
Are you guys ready to move on to the next step? Okay, Mike.
Okay. So I'm going to take my thread back to the end of the shank, which when I let my thread hang, it's right there at the barb of the hook. So if I zoom in on that, when I let my thread just hang, it's right there at the barb of the hook. That's the end of the flat portion of the hook. So now do you just have dubbing, or do you have actual Hare's masks? Okay. You have bunny faces. So again,
Yeah.
if
And
you
I
reach
also
in
have-
there, if you reach in there at the base of the wing of the ears, in between the eyes, you have a little bit longer hair. That stuff's about maybe close to a half an inch long. I guess it depends on the mask that you have. It should be just short of a half an inch. And what
Okay,
you
we got
want
one. We're gonna have to share it here, Mike, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
what you want to get, don't grab a whole bunch of it, or you'll waste the mask. But what you really want to get is maybe 20 hairs. You're looking at the longer guard hairs here.
Yeah, I usually say about the diameter of a pencil.
That's always been confusing to me because like diameter of a pencil, I mean, it depends on, if I'm going with that much, I would say not the width of a pencil.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe,
Like if it's pinched in my fingers, that's so
Yeah.
hold it up to the hook, then most of the tail, if you have it like this, then it's pretty much the bend of the hook.
Yeah.
The
About the
smaller
width
the
of the
hook
gap.
you're using, then the smaller amount of tail you're going to have, of course. So if everybody has their,
How we doing?
Well, see the tail.
This is the hardest part of the slide,
Hardest part right here.
is the tail. It's very difficult.
hello, Lee. I see you're in. Anybody else?
Jason's, I think, ready. Yep.
Okay, we good to go?
Second.
Now, while we're waiting, there's substitutes for everything. If you're having trouble getting long enough hair from a hare's mask like this, if you have pine squirrel zonker strips, you can take a little piece of that pine squirrel and use that as the tail. It's about the right length, and a zonker strip will tie about probably 30 hare's ear tails.
So the
Very
top-
similar markings. As a matter of fact, they might be better markings than this. But that can be used as a sub. A lot of people use pheasant tail or like wood duck or other feather fibers for the tail.
Get that in your left hand.
Like this.
Okay, yep.
Grab, grab.
Now,
Yeah, go back the other way. Now, see how I grab, pinch.
if you have extra left over,
Back like. Oops.
Just leave it
Serious,
off to
because-
the side because we might use it later.
that's good dubbing.
So when you have your little tuft of guard hairs, let me know.
Jason's tying in.
All right. What I wanted to say before you tie it in is at the base of this, if you look at those guard hairs, let me zoom out some more.
I know.
If you look at those hairs that you clipped off,
Just like-
those butts are all like fairly even, not too bad. If you grab those by the tips, you've got a lot of under fur here, a lot of fuzz. And if you were just to tie that in as is, you'd end up with a big bump at the back of your fly. And that might cause a problem. But if you look at this under fur, this stuff is really, really good dubbing. So just kind of holding on to the very tips, just kind of pull out that under fur and set it aside.
Yeah. That's fine.
The amount that I have, that's just guard hairs. And in proportion to the bend of the hook, it's probably less than that if you, like I'm pinching it pretty good here.
See what I do here? See how I bring the thread. Okay,
Okay, so you want the tail to be, in fly tying, a lot of times we use the parts of the hook to give you dimensions. So obviously this is a size, I believe this is size 10 hook. If I was to tell you that you want your tail to be 1/4 of an inch, then for a size 20 hook, 1/4 of an inch is going to be way too big. So since there's different size hooks, and we tie different size flies, it's better to say that you want the gap of the hook to be about the length of the tail, a little bit more. So what I want to do is just kind of judge my tail, and then I'll grab it in this hand like that. And then when I lay it on the hook, I'm laying it actually a little bit towards me. So if you look I'm turning my vise here. If you look from the top, I'm on my side of the hook. So as I wrap around the shank, it brings it on top.
the thread torque rotates it around. Torque you got the thread, so that's why you started on this side, because then when you put some pressure on it, because that hook is really slippery, as is the spur. It'll rotate up there, and by the time you get the thread tight, it'll sit right.
So then I'm just wrapping forward just to cover those butt ends. And that's my tail.
Stars right there.
So let
Okay,
me know when you
Jason,
have your, let me know when you have your tails tied in.
we're ready, Mike.
All right. So for the ribbing, what do you have, John? Do you have flat tinsel, braided tinsel?
Old flat tinsel.
Okay. This is actually braided tinsel. It's, if you look at it, it's got, it's actually like twisted around a core. But
Mhm.
flat tinsel is just as good. Wire is also good. I'm just going to take off a length of at least, say, 3 inches. And I'm going to cut that
Yep.
loose.
Ours is really curly, so they're gonna have a little bit of an
Okay.
issue trying to get it in. Yeah.
All right. So try like stretching it out in your fingers a little bit and just try to see if that'll flatten it somewhat.
No,
And then
sometimes it doesn't.
if you notice, my thread right now is about, I would say, between a third and a half, because that's where I want my thorax to be. I'm gonna,
Just wrap it over.
Here's a nice straight piece if you want to use a straight piece.
Yeah, give her the straight.
That's a good straight. You're welcome.
I'm gonna start tying that tinsel down at least the 3/4 point of the hook. A quarter back from the eye. Okay. So you can see about where I've started that tinsel. And then as I wrap it around, I'm letting thread torque take that tinsel around to the back a little bit, because I want my rib to start on the back,
First wrap of that thread.
And
on
Where
the
you
back
tie
of the
it up.
fly.
Like if this is the back of the hook.
this
You want it to be, if this is your fur, right there, right on that first. Stop right there. Okay.
So if I turn this around, you can see that tinsel is actually, it started on the top, but it ended up on the side opposite of me.
You'd let that.
So we have our ribbing tied in.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Now you want to take your thread and wrap it forward to almost the point of the hook. It doesn't really matter. Just wrap it a little bit forward from where you were. And then can you turn your vise?
No,
No.
these Regals won't
Okay.
turn.
Okay. So let's go actually to the point of the hook. So when you let your thread hang, it's right at the point of the hook. That's going to give you room to put the dubbing on. Now, I'm going to switch back to the materials camera here. Nope, not that.
So it doesn't kind of fly around like me was kind of.
That
The
one.
farther you use from this.
All right.
The hook.
So I have my Hare's mask here. I'm going to put a little more. I don't know if that
Okay,
helps.
why?
Not too much light. That's too much light.
Pretty bright, Mike.
Yep. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this Hare's mask and I'm just going to pinch from the ear, and you just get a few hairs, and then pinch from between the eyes And then I'm going to come over here on the cheek. And then way out here on the sides, it's some real light colored stuff. And then come back just all around this mask. And I'm just going to get all kinds of different hair from different parts of this mask. So as I do that, I'll go back to the other camera and show you what I have. And so you should be able to do that same thing. So now I've got some
Or you
short
can-
hairs.
You can make your own dubbing, as I have, from a mask, and just package it up.
So the advantage
Okay.
of picking it from different parts of the mask and leaving it intact is that you can, if you don't think it has enough of the little short, darkly marked hairs, then you can add a few more and you can just kind of twist it up. And so I'm mixing this with the stuff I pulled out of the guard hairs that I use for the tail. And I'm just kind of mixing it in my fingers here a little bit.
And this is the way they originally tied this fly. They didn't have pre-done dubbing.
You can see I'm kind of common that.
Wrap that dubbing.
So now I've got just a little lump of dryer lint here in my fingers. There's some long hairs, some short hairs, all kinds of things, right? Let me know when you have your little dubbing clump.
Yeah,
A little bit of.
I see the next fly in this class going so much easier than this one.
This is hard.
This is a hard fly if you're using a hair mask. If you're just using dubbing, it's maybe a little bit easier. So
I'll tell you what I think I would do, Mike, for a beginner class. I think I would substitute the hare's mask tail for a peacock or a pheasant tail.
well, we
I've
did.
seen it.
Yeah,
with
we did the
pheasant tail.
best. Oh, for the tail.
Yeah,
That
that really simplifies the fly a lot.
Yep, there you go. Keep grabbing.
That's
Grab
what
some
Tim
more.
Flagler does for his hare's hair. Is pheasant tail.
Yeah.
That's right. I think that's where I got it from. And but what I like about this fly is it's the first opportunity we get to actually do dubbing, and I like to be able to use, a real animal skin to do the dubbing with, because
And that was the purpose of putting this fly in this place, is to introduce another technique.
yeah,
Something that's going to be used for future flies, using dubbing from natural fur.
Yeah.
Do we have our dubbing?
I think we do.
Okay, I have a little clump here.
Watch what Mike does when he puts it on the.
So what I'm going to do now is pull out about maybe 3 inches of thread here. Zoom out a little bit further here. So I have my little clump, and I'm just going to take a few hairs. You'll think it's stupid, but just a few hairs, and then twist them counterclockwise. If you look at the way my fingers are going, clockwise, I mean, if you're looking from your bobbin to the hook, like I am right now, it's counterclockwise. Okay, it's clockwise if you're standing on top of the hook and looking down, it's clockwise. So whatever's easier for you to understand, I'm twisting it. My thumb is going from right to left, and I'm just taking a few hairs, like just a few, and I'm twisting them onto the thread. If you take more than that, it's going to cause you a lot of problems. So I'm doing about 2 inches here of dubbing, dubbing noodle here. That's what they call it. And if you'll notice, I have a little bit of thread up here at the top, right? Because you can't rotate your vise easily. So we want a little bit of thread at the top, and then we want this dubbing noodle to come down about 2 inches. So it's a tight pinch and roll. And you want to go to where your index finger is going from left to right and your thumb is going from right to left. And you want to twist it on in that direction. If you're a very seasoned fly tyer and you're good at dubbing, it doesn't really matter. But if you're beginning, if you twist it on in this direction, then with every turn that you make, it's going to actually twist it a little bit tighter and it's going to be easier for you to dub. So if you're having trouble dubbing, with dubbing, do it sparse and do it clockwise as if you're looking down from the top of the hook, clockwise. Or if you're looking at it from putting your thread out like this, it's counterclockwise is the twist. So everybody ready? John, you're muted if you're
Yeah, we're ready.
okay. Sorry, I was probably blabbing for no reason. All right, so now I can take that space at the top and use that to work back to the tail so that my dubbing starts right back here at the back.
Okay.
So now I'm going to take that dubbing and start wrapping my body forward.
That's okay. You're not supposed, you don't need any.
Because you're gonna
Start wrapping it through. Just keep wrapping. Just start wrapping
forward
around the hook.
towards the tail.
There you go. Just wrap. Keep tension on the thread. There you go. Keep tension on the thread. There you go.
Towards your fingers.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now start wrapping in that direction. Yeah.
So just like
There
I'm
you go.
doing.
Okay, stop for a minute. We gotta tighten it up a little bit more. Okay, take one more wrap. Nope, that one right there. Okay. One
Now,
more.
if it goes a little bit too far forward, that's fine.
that
That's
out.
actually a good thing. Matter of fact, I'm going to add a little bit more dubbing on just to kind of show you the concept.
You're done. That's your dubbing is on. That's your body.
He's trying to make it
See how
comfort,
fuzzy that looks?
like a cigar.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
like a
gonna go-
cigar.
I'm going to go actually all the way. I'm probably like a quarter of the way back from the hook. I'm quite a ways forward. Now, in the long term, my wing case is probably going to start right about here. Quite a ways back on there. But that's just going to give a little bit
Back.
fuller of a body to start that wing case. So we'll get to that when we get to that point. Now,
Right.
with a dubbed body like this, it doesn't really matter. In this case, if you're reverse wrapping or forward wrapping, we're just showing you how to tie some basic techniques. So we're just gonna, since we have the ribbing on the opposite side of the fly, we're gonna come underneath and then just start wrapping forward fairly tightly in spaced wraps.
Against your turn. That's good. Helps.
And then tie it in.
It's all there.
So you want, if you're having this graded, you want to have these evenly spaced wraps. The fish don't care.
Tie it in.
Uh-huh.
Tie it in. Like
But wrap it forward, and then when you get up to the front where your thread is, just take a couple wraps just for safety measure,
Yeah.
And what it
because
also
those are going to
does
be
is-
covered up, and then just wrap over the top of it to hold them in place.
And you're just
Okay.
doing that.
Okay, what I want you to do is
So
take your
nothing
thread,
can slip
your
out.
tinsel. Okay.
That should be good.
And then once that's tied off
Yeah.
with at least 3 or 4 wraps, Then you can go ahead and
Um,
cut that tinsel.
Evenly spaced wraps. There you go, just like, yeah.
No,
Keep tension with it. There you go. There you go. Just keep
It's over, it's right over my mouth.
You're doing it great. Just slow and steady wins the race here.
it like this, okay?
That's
Keep
not
going.
loose pen.
Couple more wraps with the pencil.
I think, yeah.
No, that's it right there. Okay, now, hold on to this with your, there you go. Now take your thread,
Same thing.
come over the top and just let it go.
Use
Okay,
the
now,
bit.
let go of it. Back here, come around your tip. No, 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 no.
Get some
Bring this hand
he was.
over here.
Right there.
Grab your bobbin
And
up and over the top.
Just
Over to- and that captures
And
it.
do it one more time, just like that.
pull it straight out.
Okay.
There.
What that does is that
Let go of
pinches it
that
down
now.
and the captures it. Now,
Whatever
we
you
can
want.
cut this free, or you can do one good tight wrap. And then you pull
And then
this
like
out.
the crank.
You always want
part
to pull
right here.
opposite the direction.
Let me see.
The way your
see
thread's
if
hanging in,
it's
because
spread
it's
out.
always embarrassing when you cut your thread.
And then
Well
all
done.
the way
Cut it
just-
fully to the base.
Now with a
Okay.
with the hairs there, you want it to be buggy. By buggy, I mean little hairs hanging out everywhere. If some of them are a little bit too crazy, you can kind of, clip them out if you want, but
Your body
for the
looks
most
pretty.
part, you want it to be shaggy.
See how it's nice and shiny?
That just shows, it shows life. It shows those little fibers move in the water. Um, Especially when you get to the thorax, you want to have guard hairs sticking out so that it represents legs. Nymphs do have legs. As soon as you get to that point, let me know.
Okay. I think we're ready for the wing
Okay,
case, Mike.
all right. So I'm going to look at this, the length of this body here from the eye of the hook. If you look at my scissors here, from the eye of the hook back to the back of the body, I'm going to kind of go to about the third point, 1/3 point, and I'm going to bring my thread back, even though I have some dubbing there and some of that gold rib. I'm going to bring my thread back to this point right here.
Yeah, right there.
That's about a third of the way back from the eye.
We're
So
gonna
if I
dub
go
more.
back like that and then back like that, that's the.
This in, we're gonna dub and then we're gonna fold it over.
Now, if you still have some dubbing left from when you did it before, then you're lucky. If you don't, you need to pick a little bit more off of there.
And we do, Mike. We got plenty
Okay.
of dubbing.
Okay, good. If you have a little bit of that tail, if your tail was too much, if you clipped off, you can kind of mix that in there as well. Because we want some guard hairs in this thorax. Like I said, the thorax is going to kind of have some guard hairs sticking out, looking like legs.
This is what we're gonna use. for the
When you brush it out.
So if you have that dubbing, set that aside. And then, do you have turkey tail, like some mottled stuff like this, or
Gonna use goose.
that's fine? Normally for a good way to identify like how thick you need your wing case to be is to take the same size hook. If you have another one handy. And I can do this in front of the camera here. You want to basically lay that hook up against the edge of your fibers here. And then that'll measure how thick you need that wing case to be for that hook. So a size 20, of course, is going to have a smaller gape. It's going to be a lot less of these fibers. So in this case, I need that many. So I'm going to pull them out to the side and clip them off.
Piece of bread. Actually, we feel it kind of unzipper.
So I have this strip of
There you go.
turkey
Good.
fibers.
Yep. Grab it by its tips, square it up, and pull it on.
Just cut it off right down here by the base of that.
So if it's splitting at all, you can just kind of run your fingers along there like this did. Just kind of run your fingers along there and just kind of marry it back together.
I'll see something, it's splitting.
It's splitting just a
Just kind of
Yeah.
stroke it a little bit like that and it'll marry all those back together.
More like a zipper. So,
So
Just
let me know
like-
if you have,
Got one hook I learned, that way you can build up your head. When you tie down your.
does everybody have their wing case?
yes,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like that.
First thing I do is take almost half of that and just cut it off. Because what we want is colorful, but we don't want real thin and wispy. We want a little bit thick, but back here where you first clipped it off of the rachis, it's real thick, like dense, pretty thick. And that could
Yeah,
cause
it'll
it to
split.
split as well.
if you tie it
So-
in there, it'll split.
Cut off about half of it. And then what you want to do is take the pretty side and flip it around. So the dull side is facing up. Okay. Then when you
So-
fold it forward, you're going to have the pretty side facing out. So again, I'm back here. On my fly, I'm back here to I have some dubbing underneath it. There's some thickness there. I'm going to take this and just hold it so it's facing me. And then as I wrap forward with kind of a loose wrap, as I wrap around, it's going to take that turkey and just kind of wrap it around the top. And then I'll just wrap those tips down like that.
Okay.
And then come back to where I started that. And then just take a look. Hold it forward. And that should be a good wing case.
Just right there. Right on the side.
It's just cleaning.
Kind of take a loose one, fold the top of it like we did before. There. Yeah, you did. Take some more reps that way. There, okay, that's good. Now you can start coming forward. For the guy.
Jason, it looks like you've done this before.
Nope. I've done a couple other flies, but
Well, you're picking it up pretty good.
I'll try.
Are we ready?
Yes,
All right, now the fun part.
more dumping.
Now more dubbing. Now you're going to take the dubbing again. Let me zoom out again. Now you're going to go a little bit thicker. Paul, who's not here tonight,
Yeah, get something else.
from Australia, he said it's kind of like an ice cream cone. So the abdomen of the fly is more like the cone, and then the front is going to be more like the ice cream. It doesn't need to be that extreme, but you're gonna, let me zoom, kind of turn this down a little bit. You want to twist your dubbing on there. You want to go at least 2 inches, maybe a little bit more, but you want to make this a little bit thicker. So I'm taking a little bit more, and I'm going up here toward the top and adding on top. So it's better to add it on top than to take too much at one time and add it on, right?
Some more. Top of the
Pick
issue
a
with it.
few hairs and add it on top. a few hairs and add it on top. And now you're making a thicker dubbing noodle. But if you tried to put all those hairs on at first, you'd have a mess.
That's-
If you have a rotary vise, you can turn it this way, and then you don't have to worry about, you can get it right up to the,
Do. Yeah,
so
you got
about
it.
2 inches.
Just like that. Ready to go.
And then if you do have some thread there, if you had to do it from afar, you can just take a couple thread wraps like I just did.
Okay.
Are we ready
That's
yet?
it.
Yeah, we're dubbing, man.
Okay,
There you
Okay,
go.
now, who's
All
that
right.
one?
so start wrapping.
So right
Forward.
about
There you go, you're gonna capture it, keep
on
going.
this thread. There you go.
There
There,
you
okay,
go, good.
okay.
Now I'm in that, if you look at the way my fly looks right now, I have
Okay.
that bare hook shank that I was saving
Right.
for the head. And I just got to that point, so I'm gonna turn back this way and start wrapping back and covering over that. And now I'll move back forward to that point. So that's just because I've done this a couple of times.
A couple, huh?
Never. There
So
you go.
what you want is your thorax should be thicker. If you look at it from the bottom, from the side, it should be thicker than the abdomen.
And you are.
And then if there's more guard hairs, that's okay. 'Cause that again looks like legs.
Now for the final step.
Everybody ready?
Yep,
All right. Now you take your wing case and fold it over. Now, when you do that, I can look from the top of my fly here because I can turn my vise. But if you're not, these are going to split. Generally, they will try to split. But what you want to do is just try to fold them across. You don't want to pull them real tight. Pull them over the top of that wing of the thorax toward the eye of the hook, and then just pinch it, but leave these butts a little bit towards you, because as we talked in the earlier parts of the class, that thread torque is going to try to push everything over to that side of the fly. So if you try to bring your wing case a little bit towards you and then pinch it good, when you wrap that over the hook shank like that, that's going to put it more on top.
Okay.
Take 2 good wraps
That's right.
Bring it
and
forward.
then
In
take
case
2
you
good
close it,
wraps and then fold it up and take
take your-
a
do the
couple
same
good
con-
wraps right there in front,
you gotta do here. Bring this forward.
and
So
then
I got
one
over-
more over the top. This is the easiest way I found to do this and the safest.
Follow the angle of the.
And then go in with the tips of your scissors.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Go
There you
in with the tips of your scissors and cut that top off. Then wrap over those butts.
What do you do with your hand?
Kind of move your fingers back to
Yeah.
here. Yeah, and there you go, and now tie it up. Okay, a couple.
Wrap it toward the eye and then come back to the back of the head. You can see my the black head of my fly there. You want to come back to the back of the eye and wait there.
That's it. No?
Does everybody have their wing case tied down?
Yep, in fact, we're half hitching it right now, Mike.
All right. So if you have a half hitch tool, like John just described, let me zoom out.
Hide the line all the way down.
I went
there.
back, I went back toward the back of the wing case.
That's a big-
Do a half hitch. And then if you go over it twice like that, I guess that's a hitch, right? And then one more. That's as good as doing a whip finish. If you have a whip finish tool, if you don't understand it, don't worry. We'll do this several times. But you take the hook and you hook it around your thread like this. This is the most common whip finish tool that's used right now. You zoom out a little bit more. You hook the thread like this, and then fold your thread forward up to the point where your thread is, right? The back of the head right there. And then as you let it twist around, you've got like a triangle there, right? You want to make a 4, I guess, like a 4 shape. And then just wrap from back to front over that thread. And then pull it loose, pull it like that. And there's your gold ribbed hare's ear. We've got a few guard hairs like sticking up high. But the buggier this is, sometimes the better. It looks like legs, it looks like life, and those things move in the water.
Here you go. We're gonna wrap this guy up
Okay.
in this
Okay,
thing.
this is her very first fly, Mike.
Very good.
You did
It would have been
outstanding
easier
job.
if it was a San Juan worm.
Yeah.
We're gonna put that guy
Ain't that the truth?
The thing is, this is a free try. It doesn't cost you
Yeah.
anything.
Running
And if
Zoom
you
out
want to
here.
come back at the beginning of the next class and do the San Juan worm and the woolly bugger and then the pheasant tail, you'll be caught up to where you are right now. This is one fly that, like I said, it's one of the top producing nymph patterns of all time. It's if you tie it sparse, it's more like a mayfly nymph. If you tie it bushier and bulkier, it's more like a caddis. It could even be a small bait fish if you imagine it. So
Got a lot of fish on that fly.
Put in your phone
and
number.
now you know, there's a lot of variations of this fly, and a lot of times people will use lead wire or lead substitute underneath to for one thing, it bulks the fly up and makes it fatter, but also it makes it sink better. But this is a beginner fly tying class, and so you know, there's also beadhead versions of this.
Oh, yeah.
What's interesting is
Look over there.
the bronze award, which is supposed to be a beginner's level award.
No, I'm serious.
They use, this is one of the flies that's in that group, and they weight it
Make your coats on it.
with 10 to 15 wraps of lead substitute wire. So I thought that was kind of
Put
interesting.
this into a